In Boston's knowledge economy, there's a growing need for quality access to the internet. The needs are for capacity and security, but also affordability for small businesses. And trying to meet those needs is a company that's using a new technology, and with a new backing, the plans are for more expansion rippling out from downtown Boston. To explain how it works is our guest from netBlazr. We'd like to welcome the co-founder and CEO, Jim Hanley. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Talk about what you're going to be doing for this market that is not being done already.
Yeah, you know, we spent a lot of time when we formulated the idea for netBlazr talking to a lot of people in the small business community and the IT community. And we found that although there is internet service everywhere in the cities, the quality of service and the speeds and the pricing is just not very competitive. If you happen to be fortunate enough to be in one of the very large buildings that has many fiber providers that are competing with each other in that building, you get really, really great pricing and very, very good choice for internet service. But if you're in the other 95 or 96% of the buildings in Boston and the rest of America that don't have those competitive fiber providers, you really have primarily just a local phone company providing service who's a monopoly and has been around for a long time, or a local cable monopoly provider. And the price difference for a small and medium business in those other buildings is like a 20-to-1 difference. So cheap competitive fiber really changes the world and the landscape for a business. And in a market, you know, in the current economy, that cost difference means a lot. And companies really come to depend on internet service so much for their operations today. It's not a luxury anymore, it's a requirement, it's a commodity. And having more choice is really what netBlazr is all about.
I wonder if there's a parallel here with, let's say, electrical power, because if you're a big buyer, you can get a good price, but if you're small, they don't care.
Very similar, yes. And so if you're a big building, you can convince a bunch of people to run and pay the very expensive cost to bring the fibers into the building. And if you're a building with, you know, only 10 stories or 20 stories as opposed to 40 stories, you generally won't have that. And so the fiber plant has been built out across America very aggressively over the last decade, but they're still only touching about not even 5% of the buildings. And so if they, you know, I think it's closer to 3% actually, and if they continue to be aggressive, they might be at 5% at the end of the decade. And so you still have the vast majority of small and medium businesses that don't have a lot of choice out there in the marketplace.
So what you're trying to do is have the small buyers grouped together.
Yeah, so we're forming, we actually help businesses and nonprofit organizations form a cooperative network, essentially. And so where the members of the co-op, you know, use their location, they install a few small radios. They're about the same size as a Wi-Fi access point you could buy at Best Buy or something of that sort. You install them in your windows and you join the network, and netBlazr essentially manages it for you. And so it lowers our cost to build out the infrastructure for our network, and it creates a peer-to-peer network from member node to member node throughout the city. And we just basically connect to the cheap fiber that I mentioned before, and we use that to fuel the network for everybody. And so our cost to build our network out is like 1% of what it would cost to actually dig up the streets and pull all the cables through the network. And so we're really taking advantage of existing infrastructure. We're using wireless technology in a very novel way that hasn't been used before. We are not providing Wi-Fi on the street. We are providing internet backhaul to businesses and small home offices and nonprofit organizations. So we are the cable that comes in through your window as opposed to in through your basement.
Explain what backhaul means.
So backhaul is just the most boring part of internet service. It's just the internet service that runs everyone's office network. Most offices now have wireless technology within the office itself, but you need to have a connection to a Verizon or a Comcast or an XO Communications, you know, level 3, all these different providers that actually are nationwide or local providers that do that connectivity. And that is essentially the backhaul for any office network. Most large companies have 2, 3, or even 4 backhaul providers. They understand the value of having redundant or multiple providers, because you just can't have all your eggs in any one basket. But as you go down to smaller businesses, they don't have that, and you go to like this typical Soho, small home office, you have just one provider almost always. And so we believe that there's a large market of businesses with 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 employees that would love to have 2 or 3 providers, but it's either not available today in the marketplace because technically there's just not, the plant isn't there, the infrastructure is not there. All they have is a Verizon copper line going into their building, or economically it just costs too much. A company would say, hey, yeah, we can bring fiber to your building. It's going to be $50,000 to actually run that connection to your building. And no business is going to do that for something of that sort. And so netBlazr is bringing very affordable internet. Our prices start at free. So if you're a member of the co-op, essentially, it's basic DSL service we give away to all of our members for free.
What kind of companies are we talking about that need this kind of data service? I mean, you can think of law firms and financial services,
Sure.
but maybe digital media?
Yeah, I mean, any company that is dependent on the internet today would benefit from a speed boost. I mean, the wonderful thing about the internet is our appetite is never ending. And companies, with the advent of cloud computing, with the YouTube phenomena and like things like Pandora, where people are just constantly streaming internet bandwidth, the job of the IT manager who has to manage a network and keep it all running, and meanwhile they still have all the business applications that they have to maintain and everything like that, and there's all these other things on the side that are drawing bandwidth. The appetite continues to grow, and so netBlazr's model is we're not really a replacement. Everyone really should have a classic tier 1 carrier in their network. But netBlazr is a co-primary or a complement to that. We can give your network for pennies on the dollar. We can double or triple your capacity, or even double it for free and put you on a basic DSL plan. And so it's a really different positioning. We're trying to create a new product category for broadband. It's commodity internet. It's affordable like no one's ever seen before in the marketplace. And why wouldn't you just add it to your network and get all the benefits of better reliability from 2 different providers, and you get a big speed boost for nothing?
By the way, where do you see this expansion going finally?
So we launched our service last year in the Boston, in the Back Bay, around the Hancock Tower. We've been just adding customers through word of mouth without any marketing or anything of that sort. And our goal this year is to add several new neighborhoods. We're ready to launch over at the Innovation District in the 4-Point Channel, South Station, North Station, State Street, Downtown Crossing. Our goal is in the next 12 to 18 months is to really blanket all of Boston with head ends that serve new neighborhoods. And then when we figure everything out in Boston and get the business ready for scale, to take it out to the top 50 cities across America.
All right, thank you very much for being with us. Jim Hanley.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
From netBlazr, we'll have more news in just a moment.